Folks, I'm going to submit to you today that we have a new American dream. The new immediate American dream is no longer owning a house. Can we admit that? I mean, that's a fantasy. The new American dream is repealing Obamacare, the overwhelming passage of Proposition C in Missouri. This is the first vote, and maybe you can look at it almost as a poll. The first vote on the new American dream, removing Obama from our lives and repealing Obamacare. Not just Obamacare, but Obama and his entire unconstitutional prosperity-killing policies and agenda. The new American dream, obviously, is to retain the Constitution as written. It is amazing. 72% of the people in Missouri voted to repeal Obamacare. This is stunning news to a lot of people. Cannot believe this happened. The ruling class inside the Beltway is in a state of denial about this, as is the partisan political operative media. And this is the closest indication we've had to a public poll on this. This is called a landslide, folks. 72%. The First Lady landed in the Costa del Sol area this morning for a break with her youngest daughter, Sasha, whose 90 other daughter is in camp, in summer camp. She's in a 4-day stay over there. 5-star hotel, 60 rooms have been booked now, not 30. 60 rooms. Meanwhile, where is Birthday Boy? Birthday Boy's in Chicago, hanging out with his real friends, his union buddies. Here's the story. This is from the Associated Press. President Obama heading home to Chicago to celebrate his 49th birthday on Wednesday. The White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs said Obama's birthday plans include having dinner with friends there, i.e. the union people, and spending the night in his own house in the city's Hyde Park neighborhood. The president traveled to Chicago today and Thursday to tour an auto plant and attend Democrat fundraisers. Be back in Washington on Thursday night. Now get this. He won't, however, be with his family, spending his birthday instead as a bachelor. First Lady Michelle Obama taking their youngest daughter Sasha to Spain this week. Their other daughter Malia is away at camp. Gibbs demurred when asked if it was a source of Obama family tension the president was celebrating his birthday without them. Gibbs says, no. They'll all be back together soon. The fact that the AP even referenced, I mean, everybody's thinking this, but to have this in the media, she splits on his birthday. He goes back to Chicago on his birthday. He's going to spend the night as a bachelor alone in it's number 49. Look, I'm a bit of a traditionalist on birthdays, but how many of you, let me just ask you a question, how many of you, on your birthday, if your wife decided to take one of the kids and flee the country on your birthday, what will you think? Now, I know some of you would celebrate. Fine, you're leaving the country, that's awesome. But others might say, it is a bit strange. New York Times today. U.S. finds most oil from the spill poses little additional risk. On day 105, on day one, I, El Rushbo, reported that this would not be a major problem, that we weren't talking about enough oil here compared to the full volume of water in the Gulf of Mexico. And here it is in the New York Times. See, you knew about it. You knew the truth on day one. If you read the New York Times, you don't know about it until 105 days, if ever. The government is expected to announce on Wednesday, and they've done so with Carol Browner, that the 3/4 of the oil from the Deepwater Horizon leak is already evaporated, dispersed, been captured, or otherwise eliminated, and that much of the rest is so diluted that it doesn't seem to pose much additional risk of harm. Told you all this on day one, and certainly the first week. Pointed out this is light crude, that it'll evaporate quickly, that it'll be dispersed. Day two, I got slammed by Anderson Cooper 210. I got slammed by everybody else in the partisan political media. We weren't talking about enough oil to cause any long-term damage, yet, mind you, this was the worst oil spill in our nation's history. Remember, the regime did nothing for 50 days. They didn't do a thing other than send some SWAT teams down there to investigate the other. And they suspended all drilling, put a moratorium on drilling. A judge twice overruled, and they still, in defiance of the law, have a moratorium on drilling. I told you it was not going to be a problem, that it was not going to be a disaster. And yet for 50 days, the regime sought to use this spill as a crisis to advance their political agenda. And here you have the Obama administration did nothing for 50 days, all the while blaming British Petroleum, or BP. They created and incited panic. There were all kinds of news to remember. The oil was supposed to reach the east coast of Florida. If we didn't do something about it, they kept media teams on the beaches looking for tar balls, which you can find every day of the year on a Florida beach. There are tar balls every day. So here, finally, the New York Times reports most oil from the spill poses little additional risk. Government report finds about 26% of the oil released from BP's runaway well still in the water or on shore in a form that could, in principle, cause new problems, but it also could, in principle, not cause problems. The fact is they can't find the oil. This has been hilarious. This is a teachable moment, and it is classic. Most of the oil, as I told you on day one, light sheen, the ocean surface, or in a dispersed form below the surface. Federal scientists believe it's breaking down rapidly in both places, and as usual, they're shocked and surprised. Nature always cleans itself up. Eventually, the problems occur when we humans, in a hurry, try to help, think that we're bigger than nature, or more appropriate, that we are harming nature by virtue of our existence. Was the media played with the oil spill? I mean, were they taken for a ride, or were they willing accomplices? I suggest they're willing accomplices. They're also dunces, and they're predictable. They are uninformed and they're ignorant, and they live in a small little world. It wouldn't have taken much to play them, but they were right on board for this anyway. Everybody on the left wanted this disaster, wanted this crisis, in order to advance their anti-capitalist agenda. And I think it's very interesting to note, folks, that the environmentalist wackos, in order to advance their agenda, is anti-capitalist. All that talk of plumes, remember this? All the talk of the plumes, stretching for hundreds of miles underneath the surface of the Gulf, creating pictures of disaster, flipper and other fishies swimming into the oil and dying, and yet they can't find the dead fish, and they can't find all the damaged pelicans. There's some, but not disastrous levels. Fish have a sense of smell, just like we do. Now, fish do not know that they're in water, but they can smell oil, and they're not just idiots that swim right into it. They smell it, they go away from it. We're not seeing dead fish carcass float to the surface and float ashore, are we? We can't find evidence of a disaster. In other words, the New York Times and the rest of the partisan political operative media think, never mind. Wasn't all of this just another prime example of leftist distortion, media malpractice, journalistic malpractice? We often hear about the fog of war, but it would seem that the fog of media hysteria is even more dense and more prevalent. Whatever happened to Obama's blue ribbon panel of non-oil experts? Remember this? A blue ribbon panel to look into the damage, to look into the cause, make sure it didn't happen again, to look into the cleanup. It cost $50 million, this blue ribbon panel. Not one solution ever came out of them. A real leader would have assured us that everything's going to work out, that everything's going to be okay, that we're going to focus on making sure that the oil does not reach shore. That's where it can cause problems. But we don't have a real leader. We have an agenda that's being pushed by a pseudo-leader. We have somebody who creates crisis and panic and lives off of it. Wants the country roiled, filled with anxiety.